Today I'm going to let my imagination run wild. Today I've got with me four watches that I think back in 1957, 1958, around that era would have been like a really good four watch collection. I do not have any divers watches on this collection. I'm not sure if divers watches were really bought back then and used that much other than for diving. They were not as common. They were not as popular. Most people did not have a diver's watch unless they were, lived close to the ocean or were swimming a lot or diving. Today, the watch collection that I have, really, really want to specifically show you guys a really interesting watch that I got on eBay recently, and it's this Junghans. It's really, really beautiful. It's a beautiful watch. It's a lantern style watch. I think it's just beautiful. I think that whoever designed it and owned it, I mean, this is a piece that to me was really, really interesting when I saw it and I ordered it. It was missing a hand, the minute's hand. It's still missing the seconds hands. I'm okay without it. I couldn't find one at the moment, but for now, I'm going to show you guys what I think would have been a really nice collection back in 1957, around that area. Of course, I wasn't born yet. I was born in 76, so it was about 20 years before I was born. But I think this would have been a really nice collection for somebody back then. And I know it's mostly my imagination. I know that we have this idea that people used to dress really good and people were really elegant back then. Of course, that's only the pictures that we see. There was a lot of people that couldn't afford what we see in the pictures. So I realized that not everybody would have had a collection like this. It was different. It was really hard. Times were difficult. And I do understand that, but still, my imagination can still run a little bit. And this is what I think would have been an ideal collection for somebody that could buy a watch collection back then. I think they would have, of course, needed a dress watch. And I know that people didn't think like we do today. We think we need this, that, and the other, and really we don't really even need a watch. But back then they did need a watch, but they only really needed one watch. So I think this would have been a nice dress watch for somebody. This is a Haste. It's a really, really beautiful tank style watch. I ordered this watch online too. I had to put a crystal on it. It didn't have a crystal, and we couldn't find the original plexi, so my dad helped me cut a actual crystal, and glass crystal, and put it on this watch, and it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful, little dress watch. This was a men's watch, still is. Of course, anybody can use it, but it's a dress watch. And in my imagination, most people would have had a dress watch because I was fantasized that people used to dress elegant, and of course they would have used the dress watch. I want to thank everybody also today. Today is 2 weeks of having this watch channel, and I already have over 100 subscribers, and I'm really, really thankful. If you're not subscribed, that's okay. If you enjoy watches, I'm glad you're here. But for those of you that are subscribed, I really, really appreciate your subscriptions and your likes and your comments and all that. Now, this would have been a more common watch that most men would have had. This is a Gruen Precision. A beautiful watch. This is, I think, from 1955. So it would have fit in this collection. It's a beautiful watch. I mean, they're only 33 millimeters, so they're not that big. But this is what men wore back then, and I mean, I would think this would be like we would call this today a weekend watch or a beater watch, for somebody that could afford it. But I realized that most people could probably only afford this watch, and there was no beater watches back then. But I think this Gruen is really good for this collection. And then, of course, I have a Rolex Datejust. This is a really interesting watch. 1958, it's a 6605. It's got a roulette calendar on it, which the odd numbers are black and the even numbers are red. Right now it's on 9, so it's black. It has a really nice engine turn bezel. I realize that it's hard to buy a Rolex today. It was probably much, much harder to buy a Rolex, back in the 50s. But some guys would have had Rolexes, of course. That's why they were made. I mean, some people did have them and did buy them. And if somebody was collecting watches, I would imagine they'd want something like this. I do have it on a leather band right now because I think it looks better on this collection with a leather band. And it kind of matches a little bit. Now, the watch I really want to talk about, and this collection, this could have been like a complete collection. Of course, I realize But there always has to be the odd watch, the different watch, the unique watch, and I think this one would have been it. This Junghans. This is a beautiful, beautiful lantern style watch. It is gold plated, so the gold plating is obviously wearing out. Me and my dad cleaned it up a little bit. When I bought it, I thought it had a big stain on the dial. It does have a little bit of damage on the dial down here. It's a little bent. I didn't even try to straighten it up. It's a vintage watch, and you would expect something like that on a watch like this. And I polished the plexi, and plexi is in really good condition. It's really hard to find these crystals anymore. These acrylic crystals. This one is in good condition. We can still find them. My dad has cabinets of crystals, but it's just very time consuming. And I just love this watch. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful watch. I think even today, in today's standards, I mean, today we wear much bigger watches and we're wearing dive watches for almost everything, and we're so used to dive watches. But these old watches or older watches, they have their own look to them, and I think it's a really elegant look. Especially I don't really wear these kind of watches that much. Type of work I do, it doesn't require a fancy watch. I do maintenance. I'm a maintenance supervisor, so I can't have a watch like this, under a sink. It's just a really interesting Junghans watch. And it's really not that small. You put it next to a datejust, which is a 36 millimeter. It's really, I mean, it wasn't a tiny watch. It's much bigger than the Haste, and it's really, comparable to the Gruen. So this is a really interesting watch. I thought I'd share it with you guys. We all love watches, and I realize that we see something like this, and we want to know a little bit more about it. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information about it. One thing that is really, really interesting is that this watch has fixed lugs. So I'll show you here. So to take this band off, and I don't like to take it off too much because I know it's just a piece of a sheet metal that's holding it. So that, of course, the watch has a fixed lug, so I can't take the pins off like I would on a regular watch. And so I found this. It came with this band, and I was gonna try and replace the band to this watch. And I asked my dad, where do I get these bands? He told me, you know what? In 50 years of watchmaking, I've never even seen those bands. And I know started looking online, and I know they're still being made out there. But they're pretty cool. This is the brand on this band. I didn't find much information on it, but I mean the band's probably a little small for the lugs, but it's okay. I mean it's a vintage watch. You're not gonna expect perfection, or I'm not even trying to sell it. So it's just a watch that it's really interesting that I thought I'd share with you guys. I know when I see something like that, I want to know a little bit more about it. It just interests me. I'm always interested in, different things. I know watches for, the past 10, 15 years got really big. Now they're coming back to the small watches. So I know that a lot of these vintage watches that nobody's even looking at anymore, I know they're going to make a comeback. I was at a hat shop the other day. I bought myself a really nice Panama hat. And I saw this young guy. He's probably 23, 24. And he had a really nice watch. I think it was a Waltham or something like that. And I asked him, immediately we all think, well, maybe it was his grandfather's watch or somebody's watch, and, the kid's wearing it. And I asked him, what's the story behind that watch? He said, no, it looked cool, and I just ordered it online, he said. And everybody asked me about it, and I love because everybody's asking me about it. And it was just a regular 33 millimeter watch with a gold plate, but it looked beautiful because I know these watches are coming back. I know that, us that really like watches, we really have an affinity for these old watches. We like the new watches, but we also like the old watches, and there's a lot of history, a lot of story behind these watches, and we're always interested in knowing and learning some more. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.